Our Regent Peak team is honored to have the opportunity to meet some really interesting individuals who we feel have a unique life story to tell. It's one of the reasons we decided to create this series, Peak Performers. We want to share their stories because we found their creativity, drive, and dedication are motivating. We know everyone is busy, and we wanted to keep these interviews moving, so there are only 5 questions. We hope these interviews you hear today will inspire you to become a peak performer. So let's go.
Hi, I'm Craig Robson, founding principal and managing director of Regent Peak Wealth Advisors. Joining us today for our Peak Performers video series is Craig Lucie. Craig is a former TV anchor who left the industry to start his own business. Craig wanted to be that voice, share the light on companies, organizations, and nonprofits who do just fantastic work. Craig's firm is called Lucie Content. And I've had the good pleasure of working with Craig for the past 18 months as he's helping Regent Peak Wealth Advisors both from a content creation and from a business vision perspective. Craig, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's great.
I love it. I was just thinking, you actually signed us on right during almost right when the pandemic hit, and we did our first initiation call, if you will, like our first pitch call over Zoom, and I was like locked inside a room like everybody was. So I appreciate you guys trusting in us to create your content and all your communications.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic partnership. Thank you. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Our new experiences with Zoom, right?
Exactly.
So Craig, just kind of kicking it off, my first question to you is, if you think back in your professional journey and you go back to that first employment opportunity, how, if at all, did it shape the role that you're performing today?
So I guess one of my first jobs was when I was younger. One of my best friends, like after a bad storm, we would go and knock on doors and be like, hey, your yard's a mess. Would you like us to clean it up? Because your yard service is probably not going to be here. They're overwhelmed. And so that was one of my first jobs, and that's hard work. And I really enjoyed doing that. But I guess really one of my first jobs was when I was a car detailer at Duval Acura, where I'm from in Jacksonville, Florida. And the gentleman that I worked with, his name is Agnew Greer, and he looked at my hands and he said, those are really soft hands. We're about to change that. And by like day 3 of sticking my hand in this degreaser bucket and washing wheels, like literally all the skin shed from my hand. And then I showed up the next day with those yellow dish gloves. And they're like, are you kidding me?
The Palmolive.
Yes, exactly. Like, take those off right now. But I mean, it was hard work, and I learned so much in those first jobs. Like, you really, to get ahead in anything in life, you got to work hard. So, and I learned that from my parents as well, and just observing my dad. So those first jobs in high school and those watching, like with your kids, I'm going to have them do these tough jobs too, so that they learn, like, to get ahead in life, nothing's easy. You got to get out there and do the hard work.
Let's jump into this kind of proverbial time machine and let's go backwards, right? And if you look along your both professional and personal life, talk to me about maybe 1 or 2 things in hindsight that you would do differently if you could.
You know, I went to SMU in Dallas, Texas, and I was on the business track, and you know, I enjoyed it, but I'm not really a numbers guy like you are. I'm more of a people person. I'm more of a creative, and I was taking calculus and statistics. I'm like, you know what? I don't know when I'm going to use this stuff, and so I changed my major from business to broadcast journalism, and that really helped out my GPA. But in hindsight, I kind of wish that I had just, you know, really worked harder in college and had a double major of business and broadcast journalism, because you know, my wife was a business major, a finance major, and she can just do math in her head like that, and she's really business savvy, so I lean on her. So I kind of wish that I had kind of stuck with some of the business classes. But I'm also someone, like a lot of our viewers probably watching this, like, I'm not necessarily going to learn something if I bury my head in a book. I have to actually do it. Yep. So I'm a firm believer in that everything happens for a reason, and the path that I've chosen is kind of what I was basically built to do.
You know, I look back on my professional and personal journey, and I'm amazed how individuals just voluntarily decided to invest time in me. They didn't have to do it, right? And there's a couple individuals that I just look back on, and I'm grateful, right, for the time they spent with me. So I'm going to ask you to look back. What are the 1 or 2 individuals, again, whether it's personal or professional, that you can look back and say, man, they had a direct impact on who I am today as a business leader, as a father, as a husband, you know, all of those?
Sure. I think I'm very fortunate to have the family that I have, and I've learned a lot from my mother, who as a young kid always said, "You're the master of your own destiny." She's very strong and independent. With my father, who, as you know, I recently lost to cancer, I was able to kind of every day observe him, his work ethic. He was an orthopedic surgeon, and he would literally read medical journals in bed at night. I think that they really had an impact on me and just teaching me how to go about in life. And when my dad passed, I had to deliver his eulogy, which was not easy, but it was also a beautiful thing because I was able to explain to people. He was in a way my mentor too, that he was the definition of carpe diem. Professionally though, you and I, even in business, you and I have had business conversations, so I think that when we have these opportunities just to talk with another like-minded individual, you and I can lean on each other and say, hey, how are you kind of running your employees? At the time, I didn't have any employees, and you kind of looked at me like, wait, you don't have any employees? They're all independent contractors. I said, yeah. Anytime I'm out and about, I love to learn more about people. Like, what are you up to? What makes you tick? And I think that is real fun to, as a journalist my entire career, all I do is like to question people. So this is a little bit odd, you asking me questions. I'd rather flip it and ask you questions.
Thank you. Well, it's exciting to have you in the hot seat, by the way. I'm actually going to ask you questions for a change.
It's odd for me, yes.
So my first couple of questions are really what I would say is reflective. So now I'm going to flip it. Let's move forward, right? And let's look forward into the future. So it's early in 2022 as we're shooting this video. Share with me one or two things that, some initiatives that you're working on that you're super excited about.
Well, this crew, this team that we have right in this room with us, I'm super excited. We have really talented folks. We've made a big investment in all this production stuff that people can't see right now. Maybe Dylan over there, he's using a gimbal shot. He can show some of it. So really excited about that. We are basically we have a lot of news producers and anchors, reporters, people who have a news background, and we're kind of taking the way that a news operation, a newsroom works, and letting that translate into the PR, communications, marketing world. So when we do videos, we want to have them turn quickly, make them beautiful, and that's what you have to do in news is let's go create a story, turn it fast, meet the deadlines. Every business out there needs to tell their story. If you don't have a video on your website, you are losing right now. Why did you create your business? Who makes up your business? Show us your team. Why is your product better than the next guy's? All of that has to be done through video.
Well, as we talked about, you've kind of challenged me to get out of my comfort zone in terms of creating our story and creating a lot of content, pushing content out there. So again, just paying you a compliment.
Oh, thank you.
So my last question is, if you weren't fantastic in what you do, and if you weren't have so much experience, right? What else could you see yourself doing, right? If it wasn't this, if it wasn't Lucie Content, if you didn't have all this experience in the newsroom, the news industry, what could either you see yourself doing, or what would you like to have tried to do?
That's a tough question. There's a lot of things I'd love to do. You can ask a lot of my colleagues. I love to travel. I talk to travel agents all the time. I think I would enjoy being a travel agent and going to very interesting places. I've been fortunate to go to Africa and Croatia and over to Europe. And so I think if I weren't doing what I'm doing, I'd be in the travel business. You are creating experiences for families that are memorable and lifelong memories. But also when you're traveling, even if I were a travel agent, you're learning about people and their cultures. So every time I go somewhere, I've learned so much about different people. I've gone over to Africa twice. And you want to talk about learning with the getting by every day in life with the basic necessities, they've got it figured out. And I think in our world today and business, it's like, when you observe other cultures and people, you can learn a ton. And so it's good to get out of Atlanta and go see another culture. So to answer your question, probably I'd be in the travel business.
Okay, so news to self. For my next travel itinerary, I may be giving you a call to tap into your expertise.
I'm lucky to have been to the places I've been to.
Awesome. My commitment to everybody is that I would keep Peak Performance videos really brief from a time frame perspective. So with that, I just want to say thanks to Craig Lucie for your time today, and thank you for joining our Peak Performers video.
Hey, pleasure. I love what you're doing. This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thank you again for listening to this latest episode of Peak Performers. Our wish for each of you, in your own personal way, is that this conversation inspires you to keep climbing.